Hi, everyone. Welcome back to today's episode of Real Talk. Thank you if you are joining us again from previous episodes, and welcome if you're brand new. So as always, let us know where you're joining us from. It's always nice to see where our merchants are and where you're starting your dropshipping store. I'm located in Ottawa, and Matt, you are all the way in BC. Is that correct? And thank you, Matt, for joining us. It's his first episode on Real Talk, and I'm super excited, and I'm sure he's going to be here for a lot more. So, yeah, you're joining us from BC. Is that correct?
Yeah, totally. I'm from Victoria, BC, so just over on the West Coast there. I've been working with Shopify for just over a year now, and I've been on the Oberlo team for about 2 months now. And I kind of started getting used to Shopify beforehand. I run my own drop shipping store and stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
excited to be here.
Matt's got a lot of experience, trust me. From what I've talked when we've chatted a little bit about his past and stuff, I think you guys are gonna love him because he's got some great experience and some helpful tips for sure. So before we hop into our little intro, I just wanted to quickly mention Real Talk, for those of you who are brand new, is an episode where we talk about anything to do with your side hustle, your business. So whether it's marketing tips or ways to 10x and optimize your website, it really can vary from week to week. So yeah, I hope you guys like these shows. From the sounds of it, from the chats in past weeks, it's always fun to have you here, and it seems like you guys like it. So that's what Real Talk is. And Matt gave us a quick little intro, but if there's anything else you want to add as to why you're worth listening to for our people who are just joining us and getting to know you.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I was saying, I came to Shopify because I run a couple of Instagram accounts, some meme accounts, stuff like that. So that's kind of like how I got started with drop shipping, just advertising for other drop shippers. And then I was like, hey, what are these stores about? So it's really interesting to learn before you come into the company and get an understanding in the real world. So that was pretty cool. And like I said, I have my own drop shipping store. I've been doing it for a couple of years now. So yeah.
That's awesome. And just a little bit about me too. I mean, if you guys have joined us before, you've heard my spiel already a bunch of times, but I've been with both Shopify and Oberlo for over 5 years now, which is quite a long time. So I've definitely seen a lot of different stores, different perspectives, different types of dropshipping businesses throughout those 5 years. So definitely a lot of experience to share. And hello, we've got, let's see, Tour Queen from Toronto. Awesome. We have London, California. That's so cool. I love to see where you all are joining us from. So hello to all of you. So let's go through a quick outline today of what we're going to be chatting about. And I thought today would be the perfect episode and perfect time to talk about the Chinese New Year. So some of you might be familiar with this holiday coming up. Some of you may not be, but it's definitely very relevant to having a drop shipping business, and it's coming up in February. So that's why I thought let's definitely chat about the Chinese New Year, how to handle it as a drop shipper, and kind of what to expect if you are just getting started, or maybe you've had some past experience. So please let us know in the chat as well any experience you've had if you have been drop shipping for a few years now and have gone through a few cycles of the Chinese New Year. So that's the outline for today. As always, we're going to go into a hot tip section, which is some kind of a marketing tip or success story, whatever it might be, that we've been loving, that we think you would as well. And then we're going to go into toolbox, which is, again, some kind of a resource, whether it's an app or a podcast or whatever it might be that you guys might like. And of course, like I said, ask questions in the chat. And as always, it's going to be recorded. So don't worry, you can always go back and rewatch the episode if you want. So don't stress about taking too many notes. You can go back and rewatch that later. So as I mentioned, today's topic is going to be about the Chinese New Year. So Matt, why don't you get us started and let us know a little bit about exactly what the Chinese New Year is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a holiday, that's celebrated over in China. Everything's closed. So government, postal services, manufacturers, etc. This year is the year of the ox. So it's a different animal every year. It's very different from other holidays, of course, where services are still open. It's only affected for a day or two. So everything is closed during this time. The Chinese New Year this year starts on February 12th, like Carissa mentioned, and it runs until February 22nd.
Yeah, so it's definitely something to keep in mind. So it's in about just a little less than a month from now, and it definitely can affect your store. So going right into how it will affect your store before we go into those tips and suggestions, is that I mean, as you all know, most of our suppliers on AliExpress are located in China. There are some elsewhere, which we'll chat about later, but most of them are in China. So a lot of them, if not all of them, probably will be celebrating the Chinese New Year, and therefore shipments could be delayed. So, yeah, as Mayor said, Chinese New Year shipping times biggest concern. Yes, so we will definitely be talking about that, and that's definitely the one thing to keep in the back of mind during the holiday. So most of them take about a week off, which, like we said, is February 12th to February 22nd ish. But some suppliers actually do take a week prior or a week after, or that whole week prior, during, and after. So it's really up to the supplier to choose kind of what they're doing. So again, it's not just an exact set period of time. All suppliers may vary just slightly. And then, yeah, I think that's kind of the big thing about how it will affect your store. So let's hop into the tips now of how to handle it, just to make sure you are ready to go and you know exactly how to handle this time. So my first tip or suggestion is, like I said, find out the exact dates. So if you do work with a few handful of suppliers, like if you have a niche store, and there's a few that you do work with, just simply send a message to those suppliers, and let them know, or sorry, not let them know, but ask them exactly what dates they're taking off. That way, you know if they are taking that week prior, or if they're taking a full 3 weeks or a week after. Just very, very important to initially start out and find out those exact dates. That way, you can kind of plan how you're going to tackle that, depending on those dates. So, what's the next tip, Matt, that you would give after knowing the schedule?
Yeah, so you definitely don't want to sell time-sensitive products. So you don't want to be selling anything. Valentine's Day comes right up after that. So you don't want to sell Valentine's Day products. And if you do, just make sure you reach out to your suppliers. Just like Carissa said, not all suppliers are the same. I personally haven't really had any troubles with getting products through my suppliers during Chinese New Year. So it really does depend on the supplier, but it's good to start forming those relationships and reaching out to them and interacting with them and getting to know them, because you never know, they might even be able to help your business along the way, sort of thing. So
Yeah, and the great thing is, like Matt mentioned, he actually had a drop shipping store and didn't have too much of an issue during that time, whereas other stores definitely find it to be quite a hassle, or a bit of a hard time to handle a drop shipping store. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be that extreme of like, oh my gosh, this is like the craziest time. How can I even run a business? You might still be okay and be able to get through it. All just will depend on your suppliers, which is why it's important to reach out, and also, like Matt said, consider those products that you are selling. Make sure they're not time sensitive is the first thing. The next thing is, I mean, a lot of suppliers, like I said, are in China, but there actually are suppliers that have warehouses outside of China, like in the US or Spain or wherever it might be. So, depending on which market you are selling to, say if you are selling to the US market, it might be worth seeing if your suppliers offer an option of shipping from a US warehouse, in which case, those shouldn't be affected in terms of times of shipping. So just something to keep in back of mind is, if you can find a supplier that has a warehouse in a different location, those ones should still be up and running. Again, always just reach out to see if they are affected by the New Year holidays. But that could be a great option, is just source from other warehouse locations from those suppliers. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Matt, for the next one.
What I was going to say is that you can always you can source those products by doing a product override as well. So if you do end up finding another supplier, you can always just switch that into for the product that you do have currently.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. So, like you said, if there's a really popular product that you sell quite often, and then you reach out to the supplier and they're like, yeah, I'm taking those full 3 weeks off. I won't be doing anything. I won't looking at any messages. I won't be shipping any products. Like he said, find that backup supplier. So see if you can find any other, because I mean, on AliExpress, there's always so many suppliers that sell the same product. There's usually at least five or more that are selling the exact same thing. So definitely worth reaching out to them, seeing if those other backup suppliers are, uh, you know, maybe taking a shorter holiday period, or maybe they have a warehouse outside of China too, and that way you have those backups. And we do have steps that can help you override a product. So if you do want to go ahead and use that other supplier during that time and you get orders, you can follow the process from our help docs just to do a quick override, and then all those future orders will be processed, and you can always swap back to the old supplier if you wanted to. So definitely important to keep in mind, and again, just to have those backup plans. Let's see, the next tip that I have for you all. So we said sourcing another supplier. It's, I mean, it's really going to depend on your store, and it's going to depend on the type of business that you've created. But another possibility would be ordering a small batch of inventory. So I know with drop shipping, the great thing about drop shipping is that you literally don't have to order inventory. You just essentially order the products as orders come through, and then those ship directly from the supplier to your customers. But in events like this, if you're really, really worried about those shipping delays and you have a product which you know is selling really well, you always could decide, okay, I'm going to order X number of products to my location ahead of time. That way I have, say, this small little batch of inventory, which if I do get orders during this period, I can go ahead and ship those out to the customers. So again, I know this is like the opposite of drop shipping, but it's just kind of a backup plan you can keep in mind. Like I said, if you do have some popular products. And the great thing is it's not like you only have to do this during the period of the Chinese New Year. So after the Chinese New Year, if you still have some extra inventory that you kept, you can always still send those out. Like there's no harm in just continuing to clear out that inventory you had. The only downside to that, other than having to have, a bit of extra funds to order that and store it at your location, is that you then have to ship from your location directly to the customer. So shipping time-wise should be fine, but it's more just the cost of shipping. So you're kind of paying for shipping from the supplier to you, and then now you have to then again pay shipping from you to the customer's location. So there's a couple downsides to that. But again, it's definitely something you can keep in mind if you do have some items. There was one other thing I was going to say about shipping to your location. Oh yes, if you have extra inventory, just as a side note, something you can always do with that is you can use those products still to take your own product photography, do content creation, marketing. So that's the great thing about if you do have that extra inventory. I mean, we always recommend taking your own product photos and creating your own content anyway. So it just gives you a good excuse to have that inventory with you anyway, and create content during that time. You can always even send out those products to influencers or whatever it might be if you want to use them as marketing in terms of that. So just a couple things to keep in mind in terms of ordering inventory and what you can do with it. So Matt, what's your next tip in terms of the Chinese New Year?
Yeah, so it really comes down to communication, right? So you want to just make sure you're communicating with your customers as much as you possibly can. So a couple of options that you can do is you can set a banner message in your store through your theme. You can put a sentence in your product page. So you'd have a little sentence in the actual product page saying, hey, shipping's delayed by X amount of days due to Chinese New Year. Or you don't even have to really include that. You can just say shipping's delayed by X amount of days. A checkout page in your shipping. So when you're actually checking out, you can actually have a little link to the shipping FAQ that you'd have set out. Same with your shipping pages. You want to make sure you have all that laid out on your shipping page, on your FAQ, and then possibly even send out an auto email letting all your customers know that shipping will be delayed for that amount of time.
Totally. Yeah. It's just super important to keep customers up to date so they don't have any complaints and any worries. So yeah, definitely be clear with your customers, adjust those things during that time. Super important. And I just wanted to address a few things in the chat that seem to be coming up too. So the first one was, it's tough with AliExpress suppliers. They rarely know English from MoneyCom. And it can be tricky. I know there's been a lot of suppliers I've reached out to where there is that language barrier and it can be tricky to chat with them. But I've also had a lot of other suppliers I've chatted with and had really great conversations with them. So maybe it's a good time as well too to get to know your suppliers, see which ones you have a good connection with, which ones reply quickly to you. So no matter what, it's always good to kind of chat with them and reach out to them. And even if there is that language barrier, sometimes just knowing your supplier will reply quickly and are trying to communicate with you and just are really on top of that communication is good to know, and you can kind of get across what each of you are saying. So definitely, I know it can be tricky, but there are definitely some really great suppliers still. And what was it? I saw one more in the chat too. Do you think it's, oh yeah, from Tor Queen. Do you think it's worth searching for US suppliers on AliExpress? Yes, absolutely. I think there's a lot of great suppliers on AliExpress that do have US warehouses, surprisingly, which I didn't know too much about, but there's honestly so many. And speaking from personal experience, I just had ordered something on AliExpress, I think on January 1st. Yeah, right around January 1st, 2nd-ish. And it was actually from a US warehouse that did ship to Canada, because most US warehouses only will ship to US customers, but in this case they did. And the item came super quick. I had no issues. I had a great experience ordering my own personal product from a US warehouse. So definitely there's plenty of options. So for sure, check that out. Yeah, and is there any more in the chat that we should address before we go to the next one? From RR Smith 07, communication is key to any business. If you're dealing with customers, it's so important. Absolutely. Communication. If you guys missed one of our past episodes, we talked about how to handle like customer complaints or issues, or how to win back a customer was the title, where we talk all about just communication and how important it is. So for sure, I love that. Okay, hopping into the next tip. So speaking of past episodes, if any of you joined us for the pre-orders episode or how to build hype around a product episode, we chatted about some ways that you can actually still do product launches with drop shipping. And one of the tips in that was to offer pre-orders. The nice thing with pre-orders is people know that they're going to be shipped at a later date, so they're okay with those shipping delays. So it's kind of again, depending on your store, depending on your business and what kind of shop you're creating, pre-orders is kind of a cool thing to explore, because you could say, you know, this is a new product, you've launched it, you've built up all this hype, you've posted it, and you could say shipping on X date, which is after the Chinese New Year, and still be getting in those sales. You don't have to completely stop running your business. And it's kind of a neat way to keep customers okay with that shipping delay, while also making them excited that this is like a cool new pre-order product on your store. So that's just a tip you could all use if it's relevant to your business. And Matt, what's the next one that you had to offer?
Yeah, so it's same with communication. You just want to be prepared on how you want to handle your customer inquiries or complaints. So as mentioned earlier, possibly send out an automatic email letting your customers know that orders, when orders will come through. Have an idea of how you want to address it. So do you want to let them know you are drop shipping, or do you want to say your suppliers are working and creating new inventory, or that there are shipment delays? Think about how you want to let your customers know so that you have a game plan on how to address it.
Yeah, exactly. Just be prepared on how you want to handle those questions, just so you don't feel flustered when they come in, and just so that all of your replies are uniform from one customer to the next. It just makes you feel better to know, okay, here's my game plan. This is kind of what to expect in terms of those times of shipping. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, how am I going to address any questions that come in? All of that. So just essentially be prepared on how you want to handle those in case they come in. It'll just make you feel better as well, too. And definitely, Susie, is that people do tend to be okay with those delays as long as you do keep them informed. So again, we're all people at the end of the day. We just want to stay up to date. If we're left confused, not knowing what's going on, that's when people get upset. So for sure. And Matilda, it's so nice to see you. Yes, you've been here for all the episodes. That's so exciting. Sorry, guys. It's a little dry down here. So my next tip is about growth content. So one of the last things I wanted to say is that, you know, during this time, I know there can be shipping delays, and I know that customers can be a little bit upset about that. Maybe you want to slow down your advertising or stop focusing so much on the selling. This is a great time to do growth content, whether it's blog posts, courses, things like that to learn. So that's just kind of one tip I wanted to give, is if there is something on your site that's separate from sales that you can still keep engaging your audience, it might be a great time to focus on that too.
Absolutely.
And Matt, whatever, sorry, you go into the next one.
Yeah, and like you said, slow down your advertising. It might even be good to just turn it off entirely, depending on your suppliers. If they're completely gone, you're not able to get orders. What's the point of running ads? You're just going to be spending money and not getting any conversions or anything like that. And even if you do get conversions, there's a good chance that your customers are going to be upset because they're not going to be able to get their products. So you definitely want to try and, like I said, stop them even or slow them down at the very least.
Yeah, totally. I think that's super important. And thank you, Tor Queen. It's like I'm literally like in my basement doing my live stream, so it's so dry down here sometimes. I forgot to bring water. But again, apologies for the muting there. And I was just going to mention one thing too that I forgot to include about the last tip about growth content. A great example of this is a photography site that I follow that sells like products for like lenses and things like that. So they have all this physical merchandise that they ship and sell, but they also offer all these courses and lessons kind of separately. So what they're doing right now, and I know it's probably not related to the Chinese New Year, but it's probably more related to the fact that like people are setting goals and wanting to learn new skills, is they're actually focusing a lot on marketing their courses and content. So I've been noticing all their advertising is how they're have their courses on sale, and they're talking a lot about those courses and ways to learn these things. So that's just I wanted to give an example of growth content and think about if there is a way to make that applicable to your store, and if you are going out and creating some kind of content for your community itself. And then like Matt said, slow down your advertising. So that kind of goes hand in hand with that growth content. If you are deciding to slow down your advertising, you can still ramp up and connect your community in other ways. So we have, I mean, I think that's it for our tips. And like I said, please let us know in the chat if you have any other tips as well too. Let us know. I know it can be a scary time knowing that your business is kind of on halt possibly for this like short period of time. But just like we said, stay up to date, know what's going on, reach out to your suppliers, have a game plan in mind, think about different ways to tackle it, whether it's using different suppliers from different warehouses or implementing the pre-orders. There's lots of things you can do to still make your site running. The one thing I would say, whatever you do, don't do is don't shut your store down completely. Again, it's totally up to you, but as a customer, if I was looking at your website or I had shopped on your website before, and then all of a sudden I go to your website and it's completely closed down, that's going to scare me, being like, oh, what the heck? Or if I had just placed an order and it was like closed down, I would be worried that the store is completely out of business. So a lot of customers don't know that the Chinese New Year is going to affect shipping. And so I would say keep it open, just implement some tips to make sure you have a game plan on how to handle it. So yeah, that's kind of it for our tips for Chinese New Year. So now we're going to hop into the hot tip section and toolbox. So as mentioned, hot tip is some kind of a resource, marketing tip, blog post, whatever it might be that we've found helpful. It's not usually relevant to the topic of what we've chatted about all day, but it's just anything we've been loving. So my hot tip is the assign sense feature. And I'm sure a lot of you do use this, but in the event you don't, I think it's under settings, global pricing rules. That's where it's under the global pricing rules section. There's an assign cents box. Under the assign cents box, you can add, say, 99 cents or whatever it is, and have that applied to all your products. So that's just something I always recommend doing so that all of your pricing is aligned. Because the worst thing you want to have is like, 12.57, then 11.66, and like all these weird pricings on your website. Just helps make your site look more cohesive if all your pricing ends in the same cent amount. So just a small tip. I'm sure a lot of you are using it, but if you're not, definitely implement that. I really recommend it. And Matt, what's your hot tip?
Yeah, so this is more on the marketing side of things. With Facebook marketing, whenever you launch an ad and then a customer sees that ad and then they make a purchase based on that ad, they're actually sent a survey, and a lot of people don't realize this. So Facebook has it set default for 4 weeks. So if the customer hasn't received their product within that 4 weeks, they're more than likely going to leave a bad review. What you can actually do is you can go to, I have the link here, I always forget it. It's facebook.com/ads/customer_feedback. And if maybe we can put that in the chat or something like that to make it a little bit easier. But you can set it from 4 weeks to 9 weeks. And that way the survey doesn't actually come out to your customers until they've received the product. And they're more likely to leave a good review that way. And it helps a lot with your ROAS, your return on ad spend.
Yeah, that's a huge tip. And it's something that from the business side, we probably don't see because we don't, as a customer, we don't see that pop up every time, right? So something we probably would forget to add. So I love that. It's a small tip. But I know as somebody, like from the customer's perspective, when I'm shopping, I always look at reviews, whether it's product reviews or reviews on the store or Google reviews. So yeah, I love that tip. That's a great one. And also Susie O, make sure to keep these live videos going. Oh yes, we will every Monday. Like the chat said, we definitely will. We've been loving doing them. So I'm glad you are too. And I guess the next section or the last section we'll chat about before end of day is the toolbox section. So again, that's an app or a podcast or some kind of a resource we've been really liking. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Oberlo podcast. I don't know if all of you have checked that out yet. I'm a huge podcast fan. I just love listening to podcasts. If you can't tell, I've shared a few podcasts already in the toolbox section in past episodes. But the Oberlo podcast is great. We may be on there one day, so you can keep an eye out for us. But yeah, just definitely check out that podcast. There's a lot of great stories, tips, resources that we have. And Matt, what's your toolbox tip?
Yeah, so there's actually an app that you can get from the Shopify App Store. It's called Caro. It's Carro. And basically what it is it's an Instagram influencer finding tool. So instead of having to go out there and search for Instagram influencers yourself, you never know what you're going to get, right? Somebody might have 1 million followers, but they might be all bot followers, right? So Caro kind of helps link you up with actual legitimate influencers, and it actually helps them as well. The influencers, connect with brands. So it's on both sides of things. It's not just for dropshipping stores, it's for all Shopify stores.
Oh, that's so cool. I've never heard of that app. So that's awesome. And I'm sure that can be tricky, like you said, scouting out the proper accounts that you want to work with, knowing if they're legitimate accounts or not. So that's really cool tool. Definitely check that out. So yeah, I mean, today's episode, I feel like we went a little bit, we always usually go like 10 minutes over time, but it's kind of nice. We got a nice, concise one, not too many tips, and we still have a couple minutes to spare. So that's great. So yeah, please let us know in the chat, as always, what you liked, we could do better, what you didn't like. We're definitely exploring some different ideas and directions we can take and topics. So if you guys maybe some point in the future want like a Q&A option for a session, let us know too. That might be something cool to explore where we can answer whatever kind of questions you guys have on the back of mind. So that's just an option. But next week, I think what we're going to talk about is product photography, which I'm pretty excited about. I know, Matt, you've done a lot with product photography as well from what you've said. So Matt will be here next week with us, and we're going to discuss all things product photography, whether it's how to get started, some resources you can use, some tools you can use, or even ways you can outsource that if maybe you're not the most creative person and you want help with that. You don't have to take your own product photography. There's some other options you can explore. So that's kind of, I think, what we're going to talk about next week, and something I'm super excited about. And again, it's going to be on Monday. So we're always going to be doing them on Mondays moving forward. That's kind of our new schedule. And Matt, do you have any last words before we say goodbye to everyone?
Yeah, not really. I'm excited to be here. Can't wait to see you all next week. Product photography, like I said, like Chris said, it's something that I've done before. So very, very excited.
Yeah, and it's so great to see everyone in the chat. I love everyone who participates and comes back. It's exciting for us just as much as it is for you just to see those familiar names. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next Monday. Bye, guys.
See ya.